Do you ever have a bad thought pop up in your mind, and then right away, a good thought spring up to try to fight it? Do you find that the good voice quickly wins the battle and then just leaves you at peace with a calm, clear mind? Or do you tend to get stuck in this exhausting mental tug-of-war? The bad thought can be just a simple complaint like, "Oh, this is taking forever. These people are so stupid." Immediately followed by the good thought. "It's okay. This is a good opportunity to practice patience, and these people are doing the best that they can." Or maybe it's something more serious, like you're tempted to cheat or steal or hurt someone, and the righteous voice pops up to tell you all of the reasons why you shouldn't do it. Then the bad voice pops up and tells you all of the reasons why you should just go ahead and do the thing. And the classic angel-demon battle begins. But what if we could just skip this drama entirely and make simple choices that we feel good about without overthinking and move forward with a calm, clear mind? What if we lose every time we put attention into this internal battle, regardless of which side seems to win it? What if the angel and demon on your shoulder aren't two separate voices, but two faces of the same voice? What if they're both just the ego wearing different masks? What if the ego is happy to play whatever different characters, just as long as we keep giving it the attention it needs to stay in control? The fact that they're both ego doesn't mean that they're necessarily bad, but having our attention lost in any form of ego tends to be problematic, so it's important that we see this clearly for what it is. And the fact that they're both ego also doesn't mean that we should just do whatever the demon says because, the angel is just ego anyway too. It just means it's important to clearly see the nature of these voices, their strengths and their weaknesses, and how their performance keeps us stuck in the mind and the ego. We want to understand why we should stop giving this good voice, bad voice show so much attention and how we can stop. We want to understand what a healthier integration of these voices can look like, how the demon can dress up to look like the angel, and probably most importantly, we want to know who do we listen to in these times of internal conflict instead. If that seems like a lot, don't worry. As soon as the core of this snaps into focus for you, all of the rest of these points will come into focus too naturally. For me personally, understanding this was a huge aha moment and consistently helps me to snap out of this game of the ego back into real life, rather than endlessly getting pulled through this kind of drama. We can't trust the angel on our shoulder to guide us because it's only guiding us towards our idea of what we think the right thing to do is, not what the actual right thing to do is. That means its guidance is only as good as the mental framework we have for understanding the world around us and how we should act in it. In other videos of this series to demystify the ego and harmonize the mind, we talk more in depth about the analogy of the map and the territory, where the territory is the real world and the map is our mental representation of it, but not the territory itself. The angel leads us towards what is marked as good on the map, and the demon leads us towards what is marked as bad. But if the map is inaccurate, then that guidance isn't very helpful. Important information could be missing from the map, and the things that are listed on the map might not be in the right place, labeled correctly, and they might not even exist at all. What's labeled good could actually be bad. What's labeled bad, in some cases, could actually be good. And in any case, navigating life by listening to our shoulder angel and demon talk about a flawed map is unlikely to lead us anywhere we really want to go. Your mental framework or map depends a lot on what you were taught to believe, so the same behavior can be labeled completely differently on two different maps. If you were raised to value tolerance and acceptance of people with different beliefs, then the angel on your shoulder will be telling you to let people be as they are. It'll be saying that there's no need to try to change people of other religions or to worry about that. However, if you were, for example, raised in an evangelical Christian home, then the angel on your shoulder will be telling you that you need to be constantly trying to convert people to Christianity, to change everyone's beliefs who doesn't believe in Jesus, so that you can save them from going to hell. In both of these examples, the angel on your shoulder maps onto what you were taught to believe is good, even though the behavior of letting people be or trying to convert them are completely opposite. And of course, this becomes even more pathological when we're dealing with any sort of ideological or religious extremism. If you're taught, as some people are taught, that God wants you to enslave or kill everyone who doesn't believe the same as you, then that angel on your shoulder will be telling you to ignore your shared humanity and to murder anyone who doesn't believe in your God. Most of us are taught that taking slaves and killing is wrong, so that kind of behavior could only be encouraged by the demon. But if you've been given a map that labels it as holy, then you can not only believe that you're doing good, but doing the highest good possible, doing God's will, as you blow yourself up in order to kill as many non-believers as possible. You can literally create hell on earth because of some misguided idea about going to heaven. As they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Falling into this ego trap always pulls us out of the present moment, but it can be as innocent as just getting lost in your mind for a few minutes as you listen to it debate the pros and cons of choosing noodles or rice or whatever trivial thing. Or it can scale to full-out justification and encouragement of mass murder. There are varying degrees of damage from this game, but in all of them, we're disconnecting from reality, disconnecting from ourselves, our deeper wisdom, and missing what's right in front of us. In all of them, we're forgetting who we really are, allowing the ego to dominate our full attention as we watch it play out these two different sides. So if we can't count on the angel on our shoulders to guide us, then is there a voice that we can trust? Fortunately, yes. The conscience. That still, small, mysterious voice. That tugging deep inside of us that's always pulling us in the right direction, if we can just slow down to notice it. The internal compass that always points the way. While the good ego and bad ego flood us with a constant stream of words and thoughts and inner turmoil, the conscience guides with a stillness. I personally find that it doesn't often speak in words, rather in feeling. The conscience provides a space to harmonize our various motivations, emotions, and thoughts into a single still point. It provides a way to neither overthink nor react impulsively or emotionally. We don't need to always play out the long-form debate of good ego and bad ego, or rely on an elaborate set of mental calculations. We don't need this hopelessly limited and flawed mental map to guide us all the time. The map is useful and worth making as accurate as possible, but our conscience gives us a much simpler guide for navigating moment to moment in the present. We are so used to having our attention completely wrapped up in the stories that our minds are constantly spinning up about what's happening. But we can learn to shift the attention, to find the simplicity of paying attention to what's actually happening, and feeling the subtle pushes and pulls of the conscience. So does this mean that the angel on our shoulders is good for nothing? I don't think so. If we do our best to make our mental map of good and bad, to represent what we learn from the conscience, then listening to the good voice will generally tend to lead us to a better outcome than listening to the bad voice, since it becomes a conceptual emulation of what we think the conscience would tell us. We talked earlier about how you can inherit a map that labels the most terrible of human behaviors as good, making it worse than not having any map whatsoever to guide you. But if you happen to have inherited a map from some sort of a wisdom tradition that does tend to play out well in a variety of contexts and over a long span of time, then acting in accordance with those values will generally tend to play out better than acting chaotically. But in either case, it's still a static emulation based on the past experiences of yourself or others. It relies on limited and sometimes faulty heuristics or mental shortcuts. It relies on mental calculations and keeps us in the illusory world of thinking. It's only as good as the original wisdom it came from, your understanding of that wisdom, and your ability to keep it synchronized with the dynamically tuning voice of the conscience. We want our minds on board and harmonized with the rest of our total beings. So a well-calibrated story can also be a really powerful tool for creating internal cohesion and cohesion with others. Learning to choose better stories will definitely serve us. But because we tend to default back into believing the story completely and losing track of reality, I think it's at least as important to learn how to snap out of the story entirely. In a lot of ways, I feel like that's the starting point for being able to redefine what a good story would even look like. We want to be able to use stories consciously as a tool while fully recognizing their strengths and their limitations, and without falling into the illusion of them being reality. Clearly seeing the good ego versus bad ego game for what it is helps us to do just that. Let's go back to our first example of the complaining judgmental voice being fought by the appreciative, compassionate voice. This is taking forever. These people are stupid. Versus, it's okay. It's an opportunity to practice patience. They're doing their best. If we're going to choose a story, I think it is better to choose the story of practicing patience and compassion than to pick the story that there's some big problem. That story is usually better aligned with the conscience and better aligned with a productive path forward. That story tends to lead us towards a better outcome. But we want to realize that both are just stories and that it's not necessary to stay in the world of stories. The good ego voice can help you to choose a better story instead of automatically giving all of your attention to a bad story. But these contrasting voices of the good ego and bad ego can also serve as a cue to us to help us notice that we're again living in the world of stories. And then simply let both stories dissolve away into the simplicity of feeling the conscience in the present moment. Whereas before, we would unknowingly just give our attention to this good ego, bad ego playing out to the point of exhaustion. Now we can notice it and snap ourselves out of it. If the angel on our shoulders is just giving voice to the message of the conscience in language that's understandable to the mind, then this isn't a problem. It can even be helpful for creating coherence of head and heart and total being, and for sharing this with other people. It's great when the conscience guides us. The angel articulates that message, and it both feels right and makes sense. But even then, it's worth noting that sometimes I don't know why my conscience is pulling me in a certain direction. And sometimes I even have reasons why I would do something else. But every time I've listened to my conscience, it's never led me astray. The conscience is always our best guide in the present moment, always helping guide us through an insane amount of complexity that our minds are just incapable of processing. How do I know this is true? Well, I don't, of course, but I've found it to be true, and so has pretty much everyone else that I've talked to. You've probably found it to be true for yourself, that every time you listen to that little voice inside, things tend to go better, and every time you ignore it to do something that sounds more attractive, maybe especially in the short term, that things tend to go worse, and that regardless of the external outcome, that you always feel better listening to the conscience. This little voice of the conscience is extremely mysterious. My mind can't understand how it can possibly lead us through this incredible mess of chaos and complexity, but my experience shows me that it does. Many spiritual traditions honor the conscience as fundamentally important, and some even call it the voice of God. Our mental maps tend to get stuck, fail to update themselves, and are always lacking in detail. The conscience, however, seems to be able to synthesize all of experience into a clear intuition of yes or no, 1 or 0, go or stay. Do or do not. It's a compass which always points the way, even when we can't see the path in front of us. It points the way, and we just take one step at a time, whether we see where we're going or not. Maybe that's what walking in faith truly means. This is another topic to maybe explore in a future video, but even if the phrase walk in faith rubs you the wrong way, or you're not personally totally convinced about the conscience, it's hard to deny the problems that come from being totally lost in the mind and in the story. This whole series is an exploration of this fundamental human issue and how we can improve it. So join me in the full playlist to demystify the ego and harmonize the mind, and in the Harmonious Reality podcast and newsletter. I love you. I'll see you in the next one.